Hello friends, today I'm going to demonstrate to you cost accounting within Oracle Fusion. Now let's understand the high level definition of cost accounting. Cost accounting is nothing but it's more of a planning, managing, reviewing and analyzing inventory and manufacturing costing. We'll further deep dive into this session to understand the setup required, or key setups required, I would say, and then we'll take up one scenario as well. The agenda of this demonstration is walkthrough on key cost management setups, which is very, very important. Then we'll create a purchase order. We'll create receipt against that purchase order. And then we'll do the invoice matching to create AP invoice with a different exchange rate. Not exchange rate, I would say different pricing. Then we'll run key transfer processes. These are ESS jobs. We'll run create cost accounting distribution. We'll run create receipt accounting distribution, and then we'll see how exactly those accounting has taken place within cost management. And cost organization. A cost organization structure comprises of cost organization, inventory organization, and cost book. Now if you see the hierarchy, cost organization falls below profit center business unit, and it should be the profit center business unit is nothing but it's a business unit which is straight away underlying the legal entity. So when you're defining the business unit, there is a checkbox whether you want to below the legal entity. If it is below the legal entity, that becomes your profit center business unit. And and a cost center organization can represent a single inventory organization or group of inventory organization as long as they are roll up to the profit center business unit. You can group your several inventory organization under a cost organization for financial reporting purposes, as long as they all map to a single profit center business unit. So I keep highlighting this profit center business unit. They need to roll up to this hierarchy. Okay. Oracle Fusion. So I've logged in as Cassie Brown. You need to come to setup and maintenance. Select manufacturing and supply chain materials management. And within that, you will find cost accounting functional area. Select cost accounting, cost organization. I'm not touching costing key flex fields. I'm just going to pinpoint only those ones which are mandatory and which are going to be useful for the overall cost accounting. Click on cost organization. I have created cost organization. Now you can see the cost organization. You're just giving the name of the cost organization. You're giving the organization code, which is going to be a reference for any future setups, and which legal entity it belongs to. Let's create cost book. Now, before creating the cost book, or you can do it later on as well, but this step is important. You cannot skip this one. You have to assign data access to the cost organization. So if you don't assign data access to your user profile for this cost organization, you won't be able to run some of the key ESS jobs because the list of values will be blank, will be empty. So when you're creating the cost book, look, I've created the cost book. So you just create the cost book, like I've just given the name as Poland Primary. You're just giving a name, but you're not establishing any relationship as yet. So I've just created one cost book. A cost book sets the framework within which accounting policies for items can be defined. And a cost organization must have one primary cost book that is associated with the primary ledger. You can have a cost book without assigning to the ledger basically. And now comes cost organization relationship. So how are you going to marry cost organization with cost book, right? So this setup is very, very important, and I'll show you the one which I've created. So you're selecting the cost organization here. So when you create here, it will ask you for the list of values. Okay, I'm not going to create new one. You're selecting the cost organization. It will pull out all the information. Then you have to assign your item validation organization. So this is where exactly you have to assign your item master. Then you are establishing the relationships. You are assigning us reference sets. So for cost planning setup, you are assigning as enterprise setup, and costing core setup you are assigning at enterprise setup. So you can do only at the enterprise level, or you can do at specific country level RDS, basically a reference data set. You cannot do it on common set. You have to assign inventory organization. So as we said, a cost organization can be assigned to a single inventory org, or it can be assigned to multiple org, as long as they belong to a single legal entity. And also they should be assigned to a single profit center business unit, because inventory orgs falls below the business units. And this is where you have to assign your cost book. The moment you assign your cost book, and if it is assigned to a primary ledger, it will automatically derive or inherit all those attributes like currency, accounting calendar, etc. Okay, so we are going to take up valuation structure. Okay, so I have created two valuation structure, one, and you have to define two valuation structure, one for asset item and second is for expense item. Now, if you see my costing attributes, I want to cost at organization level, then at the inventory organization level, then at the sub inventory level. So what is valuation structure? It is it defines the level at which item cost must be calculated in the application. And this once you have defined the hierarchy, once you have defined the structure, it needs to be assigned to the cost profile. So this is a mandatory step actually. Now I'll just try and create one, and I'll show it to you what exactly the value it gives you. So you have to select the set, like in which reference data set this valuation structure belongs to. So if I'm selecting common set, then that's going to be applicable for all the cost books basically. And this is the structure which I was referring to, flexible structure. So it says I want to maintain my cost item cost at this level, I want to maintain at this level and this level, or I want to maintain at cost org level and inventory org level and country level. You can define even at the project and the task level. So you can go at lowest granularity basically based on your requirement. I've selected only three hierarchy basically. I want to maintain at cost organization level. At the same time, I would like to maintain at inventory org level and the sub inventory level. Okay. Now come to manage cost elements. Now Oracle has provided you predefined cost element types like adjustments, material, profit in inventory, material overhead, resources, and yeah. So these are predefined Oracle has provided to you. You are just going to be creating your own cost element, and you can name it actually whatever you need basically. And based on your definition, you have to just map it with the cost element type. If it is a profit and loss account element, profit in inventory cost element type, then it will ask you to enter the inventory org as well. because the profit is going to be calculated at the inventory org level. Apart from that, like you don't have to enter inventory org for it. For all other cost element types, this inventory org is not mandatory. So I can name it as I can create, let's say, for my Poland, I would like to say Poland adjustment, and I can assign it to my reference data set, Poland RDS. So what will happen if I'm selecting Poland RDS, this element is going to be visible. And then you can select the cost, the type basically, adjustment, material overhead, profit inventory, resources. Yeah, so you can map those at cost element to this type. Analysis group is mainly for creating the analysis group. You can give the group name, you can give the code name, and then you can assign that particular element. It's only for the reporting. Now let's take up cost component mapping. This is also very, very important. So I'll just ignore the first one, which I was trying to create. This is the cost component group I have selected. Component group is like mapping between cost components and cost elements. The one which you have created cost elements, that is going to be mapping to the predefined cost component codes. So I'm just going to collect, I've just created one group, and then you have to select your component codes. So landed code predefined. Predefined is like coming from different sources like account payables. Now take an example. I've created the receipt, I've done the accounting, it has gone into my cost management, cost accounting. And and then there was when I've received my invoice, my rate got changed basically. The price got changed because the supplier has increased the price and given that invoice to me. Now that increase in my price needs to be factored somewhere in cost accounting. So account payable also pushes that information into cost management where it's going to be accounted. And that's going to be that I'm going to be taking up in that scenario which I'm going to be demonstrating you. So you are saying predefine, you can say like item price, you are assigning to direct material, the one which we have created. I've selected invoice price variance, which is coming from different source, and I'm mapping it to adjustment. Okay, it could be exchange rate variance. So if it is exchange rate variance, I'm going to be assigning to the adjustments. So this setup is going to be useful when you are trying to accumulate, because elements are like you have to accumulate those elements into groups and then map it actually for the real for the proper cost accounting. Let's create cost profiles. So you need to create profile for asset item and for expense item separately. Now, since you might have seen actually in my previous slide, we have created two different value set structure. One is for asset item and second is for expense item. So I'll just open asset profile. All you have to do is basically you have to create within a reference data set. So we have to select enterprise set and the cost profile name. You have to give the cost profile name and whether you want to account at actual cost or perpetual cost. I'll just quickly show it to you. Actual cost, perpetual average, or standard costing. So which method you would like to select in order to do the costing. There are quite few mandatory fields which we have to enter is like valuation structure code. So this is what exactly I said. You have to select the valuation. Since we have already used valuation structure, it's not coming up. Yep. I'll just open the existing one. So this is the valuation code actually which we have selected for asset item. And then provisional completion value at last actual cost. value immediately at and at work order close. So this is for the work order, basically manufacturing. And this is where you have to assign your cost component mapping group. So the cost components are user defined or come from external sources and are mapped to the cost elements. And we have, in a previous slide, we have mapped actually cost component with the cost elements to form the group. Okay. Similarly, you have to do it for expense item. Once you have done this, you need to set the default cost profile. You need to come to this slide, to screen, to create your default cost profile. In your default cost profile, all you're doing is basically assigning the asset cost profile, which we have created in the previous section, and assigning the expense cost profile, which we have created in the previous section. So all the rest of the attributes are going to be inherited from that cost profile which we have created. Okay, creates cost scenario. The cost scenario option will be available in cost accounting. So you have to come to supply chain execution, click on cost accounting. You'll find this option called manage cost scenario. Now, what is cost scenario? Cost scenario is like you are defining the cost scope for a cost organization and cost book combination. So if you just click on cost organize, and, okay, so I'm just going to give a name and saying it will ask me for which organization, okay, and for which book. So you can have multiple cost scenarios on which you can do the costing. You can do the roll-up analysis as well, actually. Now, scenario type is going to be regular items or configured items. Now, in our case, it's a regular items. Okay. So once you have created cost scenario, I'm not going to save this, right? Once you have done this, you need to create standard cost against that particular scenario. So this is the scenario, this is the standard cost which I have created. So my total unit cost is 42 right now, PLN. Yeah. And once I've created, I can show you. You have to select the item. Once you selected the item, it will list down all the all the items, sorry, elements. You are selecting the validations unit. My validation unit is this. This is already existing actually. That's the reason I'm not able to create. Okay, so you're just selecting the validation unit and it will allow you to create your standard cost basically within that particular scenario. Now, unit cost is PLN right now, 42. Okay, so now we'll take up our scenario actually to create the transaction. Let's take up the scenario to understand how these cost elements are getting accumulated within cost management or cost accounting module from various sources. So for that, actually, we'll create a purchase order with the two quantities at the rate of 40 PLN. Then we'll create receipting against that purchase order. But while creating the AP invoice and matching that purchase with receipting and the purchase order, we'll make sure the price variance happens over here. So we will enter the line items at the rate of 42. We'll be matching with because it's within the tolerance, right? So it won't get rejected or it won't put the hold. So we'll put it as 42, and then we'll reflect after running all those processes. We'll check within cost management how those elements are getting reflected from payable invoices, from receipting. Yeah. Now we'll create purchase order. Okay, I'm just going to select the supplier which I've been using. Okay, create. Enter the line details. So I'm going to select goods and I'll select my item, which is field rolls. Now you can see the price. Price is 40 PLN right now. I'm just going to select two items. Location, I have to put the location where exactly that needs to be delivered. You need to come to schedule. This is mandatory field as well. I'll just expand this one because there are quite few mandatory fields that is required to be entered. I'm selecting sub inventory and the requester is going to be Cassie Brown. And another one I would like to select the direct delivery. I don't want to go through the inspection process basically. Okay, submit. Once you have submitted, it will go through the approval process. So there's a approval group which has been set. So it will be assigned to Cassie Brown and another person. So only one can approve. So whoever approves first, that's going to be approved basically. So I'm just waiting for the notification to come. Okay, so the notification has arrived. I'm just going to approve this purchase order and now we'll do the receipting process. We'll come to my receipts. Now, since this is direct delivery, it should directly come to my receipts. I'm going to select any time the items were due. So this is the purchase order which I've created just now, P10, P010. I'm doing the receipting, two quantities. I'm not going to enter anything over here, like way bill number. These are non-mandatory fields. Press the submit button. Okay. We'll quickly go back to the purchase order to check the status of the purchase order. Okay, close for receipting. And now we'll do the payable invoice. We'll do the matching of the payable invoice. So one thing we have to make sure when we are creating the purchase order, payable invoice, we won't be putting the exact rate. The rate was on the purchase order was 40 PLN, whereas we are going to be changing it to 42 PLN. That needs to be reflected back into the cost accounting. This is what exactly we want to demonstrate. Okay. Create invoice. Instead of 80, I'm going to put 84. I need to do the matching. I'm going to put as 42. So this should be for 84. Okay, I'm applying. Press the save button. Do the validation process. The approval has not been set actually for this one because it's coming from PO. So it is in the approved state. Okay. Now, one thing you have to bear in mind, in order to push your payable invoices into the cost accounting, this invoice should be fully closed or should be uh, accounted and posted into journal ledger. Otherwise, it won't pick it up this invoice. So I'm just going to say post to ledger. That means it has been posted, and we'll quickly check. Okay, so this is invoice variation, which is for PLN. Liability is 84 and accrual is 80 because it is coming from receipting. After creation of payable invoices, we need to just check the payable purchase order status as well. We'll come back to purchase order one more time. Should be closed for invoicing. It's closed basically. Okay, so now we'll run those three ESS jobs. Before you do the accounting, you need to transfer your inventory transactions, you need to transfer your receipt transactions, you need to bring payable invoice transactions as well, actually. So let's do one at a time. Transaction transfer. Transaction. Transfer inventory to costing. So we'll do this first. We'll do this one, receiving to costing as a second step. There is no predefined sequencing as such, but I'm just going to be doing it this way. It will ask you for the cost organization. Okay. Once we have done this, actually, we need to just quickly check the log file or a text file whether the records have been picked up or not, actually. We'll click on text file. Okay. And the receiving should have, because we have done the receiving, right? So you should pick it up, the receiving transaction. Yeah, there are two transaction lines basically. It has picked up. And then we'll submit one more thing is transfer cost to cost management. This picks up actually all the information from Oracle Fusion payables and bring it into the cost management. This is business unit specific, so yes, you need to put this way. And I'm going to say 25 a cutoff date. So anything, all the invoices between before cutoff date is going to be picked up. Yep, so 2 picked up, 2 transferred, 2 field. Yep, 0 field. Good. So we need to go to supply chain execution, receipt accounting, create account, receipt accounting, distribution. We'll also check the status of that receipt accounting distribution. So like okay, now we'll check our receipt accounting distribution. I can select purchase order P010 directly. Okay, so it has picked up even a price adjustment, the one which we have created, the one which it is coming from the payable invoices basically. Okay, so this is 40 pounds. So my purchase order was for 40 pound. And if you see the description, this inspection was debited by 80 pound and my accrual was 80 pound, which is credited. And my invoice adjustment is going to be again, this thing is, inspection is going to be 4 debited and invoice price adjustment is going to be 4 credit. Right, now we'll come to the cost accounting. Create cost accounting distribution. I've already created a run control. So run control, you have to just create once, right? It has got like multiple processes, like pre-processor, cost processor, COGS recognition, distribution, blah blah, and all those processes basically, which are associated to one cost accounting distribution. The only thing you have to bear in mind is cutoff date. I've put at a higher date, but if you don't put this date properly, then what will happen? It won't pick it up the record transactions in between that particular date, before that particular date. So if I'm going to put as like 1, it will pull out only those transactions prior to 1st of Jan basically. Now I'm just going to put the future date. Okay, I don't have to change anything over here. All I have to do is like schedule the process and it will regenerate the process ID. We'll come back again actually to see the request ID. Okay. 2848207. You can come here, you can check the status of that particular receive cost accounting process, and here you can filter it out. My process ID is 207. Still running. Okay, so it has displayed now, like it has picked up the records which we have created. So the process was completed successfully. Now we can see the cost accounting distribution. Review cost accounting distribution, and you can select advanced option where you can put the reference number as PO number. Okay, can you see now, like it has created two transactions fully accounted. The one is coming from receipt and second is coming from adjustment. So if you just do the view details over here, my cost accounting, now these are the elements which I was referring to, cost elements, direct material, right? And if you see the elements over here, which is mapped to the adjustment, and the cost component was invoice price variance. Do you remember? Like invoice price variance, it was mapped to adjustment, and it is like 2 PLN unit cost. And if you see the distribution, it says 4 because there were two items. So inventory valuation was debited by 4 PLN and receiving inspection was credited by 4 PLN. And this is coming from account payables. Okay. Now we'll see how inventory valuation was calculated, and we'll just quickly walk through that particular screen. You need to come to cost accounting, and if you go through review inventory valuation, you can click on this infolet, or you can click on review inventory valuation. So I'm just going to select cost organization, and you can select the period for which you want to check your inventory valuation. Now I would like to see for Feb because we have entered transaction for Feb, and it also talks about valuation structure type, whether it's asset type, consign type, and expense type. Since we haven't entered any transactions related to expense, we'll quickly check the asset ones. Okay, so if you see on this side, it will give you three options. Valuation unit. Now, what was your valuation unit? Do you remember when we created the valuation structure? We created as cost organization, inventory organization, and inventory sub-inventory organization. Sub-inventory is basically within inventory organization. So it's a hierarchy basically. So it accumulates based on the valuation unit and it posts the value. Now, since we already had only one inventory, sub-inventory, otherwise it will list out actually like multiple sub-inventories. So it will give you all the combinations of the sub-inventory, all the combinations of the inventory org within cost organization. And if you want to check inventory org wise, you can also check inventory org wise. You can check sub-inventory wise, you can check through sub-inventory as well. So these options are going to be opened based on the structure which we have created in valuation structure. Okay. So we have completed the scenario by creating the purchase order, then did receipting as well actually against that purchase order. We did created AP invoice with a different price, and then we have checked our inventory valuation, how that's panning out actually within cost accounting. Hope you liked my session, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.